Hello and welcome. My name is Martin Kluge and I have the great pleasure to be interviewing Martin Osner today. Martin is a well-known photographer, artist, gallery owner, art curator, educator. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
And Martin, I know Martin for decades now. I studied with Martin. I established myself as a photographer because of you, and I came back to you when I got stuck with my photography and started studying again. And I just wanted to take the opportunity for your audience to get to know you a little bit better. So, Martin, who is Martin Osner, the artist, now, today? How would you describe yourself?
Sure, Martin. Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time and the trouble out of your very busy and talented life. So I appreciate it. Are you looking for a one-liner? Or,
yeah, I'm looking for a one-liner.
Okay. I guess, I'm an artist trapped in a photographer's body who every now and then would like to do some interior design work. Now, I know that surprises you, but I absolutely love it. So I think that really is who I am.
And Martin, how did you start? How did you get into photography?
Sure. I didn't necessarily get into photography. I think photography was something that came and found me. In the early days when I had just finished school, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do as a career, which worried my folks terribly. Gave them nightmares, but that's fine. And on a day I picked up a camera and I started taking photographs. At that stage it was sport photography. I was a keen sportsman, enjoyed water sports, windsurfing and all of that. And a colleague of mine had a big fancy system and handed the camera to me and said, take some photographs. And I don't know, the moment I touched the camera, I started working through the lens. I just felt this is something I would really enjoy, and I've never stopped since that day.
And then you worked as a photographer. In what kind of fields did you work mainly?
At that stage, I was conscripted into the South African Defence Force. So I was in the Navy at that stage, and I started photographing anything really, so whatever would keep me busy. So sport photography, and then on to landscapes, and then still life photography, whatever it was, I would try that. And eventually I got the job as the chief photographer for the reconnaissance forces. And I ended up spending a couple of years in that position, and I learned so much. I learned so much with on-the-job training. So, it wasn't necessarily a pleasant place to be, but it was really interesting work. So I got to do a lot of documentary work. I got to do more like journalistic work. I got to do just about everything.
But so, how did you get into teaching then? When did you felt the necessity to teach?
Well, I never knew I could teach. For a lot of my career, I had no idea that I could impart knowledge to people. I mean, between you and me now, I'm the world's worst student. You would never want to teach me. I really am a difficult person to teach.
Try that one day.
Yeah, I am, and I know I am. But I never realized that I could teach. And we fell on some hard times. I was at that stage, Nita and I we were youngly married. We just had children coming along, and we went through a very difficult time in our business. And I started to teach just to put money on the table. It was another form of income that could actually help us. So that's where I started teaching.
But then you co-founded a photography school, is that right?
Yes, it didn't take long. I mean, the student numbers were growing, and then there was an interest in people wanting to learn photography as a career. Certainly in our country at that stage, there was a need for that. And with a colleague of mine, Bob Reed, we co-founded the National College of Photography, 1992, 93, somewhere around there. And that grew into one of the biggest independent photography institutions in Southern Africa very quickly. And it was at that stage that I started to realize that, you know, maybe I can actually do this. Maybe I can actually teach. So
you can.
Okay, well, thank you.
I'm a good example that you can.
Thank you.
But then, so what made you decide to open up a gallery then in Cape Town after a long time of teaching?
I think the teaching had become a major part of my life. You must remember we had, 5 campuses around South Africa and full-time students who were on the program all the time. So I think we had 80 to 100 full-time students on the program. And at the same time, we also had a lot of night school students who used to come and learn part-time photography. So it was a very busy part of my life at that stage, was the teaching part. But I always had this thing about art. I always knew that I had an art inclination. My father would never ever let me do that. Even at school, he said to me, no, you can't be an artist, you'll never be able to feed yourself. So he was quite persistent on the fact that I shouldn't pursue art as a career, but I always knew it was something I loved. So even in the teaching phase, even when we were in the height of teaching a lot of students countrywide, I was already dabbling in art photography, but not for them, for me. Because I also had a commercial photography business at the same time where we used to photograph for advertising. So, and I was so good at lighting, I could light anything at that stage. I promise you, bring me the most boring thing and say, you know, let's sell this, I could sell it for you with lighting. I mean, I had that ability as well. And I tended to find that my photography was technically proficient, but artistically boring. And I got to overhear two of my lecturer colleagues, talking in the canteen one day, and the one said something like, you'll always know Martin's photography because he doesn't have to sign it. Just have a look and you'll see it's technically proficient. There's no errors. And he meant it, I guess, as a compliment. But in fact, you know, I realized at that stage that my work was plastic. So I already started looking into art photography as an option. There was very little internet at that stage, very little information, but I started dabbling in how I could actually lift my work into being more interesting and have more artistic depth. And so there was a natural progression into a gallery because in all of that I started to build up a portfolio. I started to get good comments on my work. I was guided by one of our art critics, Sean O'Toole, at that stage, who suggested it's something that I should look at doing. So I always knew that at a certain point this is something that I wanted and I wanted to do. And to come back to your question, because this is a really long-winded answer, but the day I went into opening my own gallery and stopped teaching was the day we sold the National College of Photography. It got sold to a major company in South Africa who bought it as part of their programs and their schools, and I was afforded the opportunity then to actually move away. We had a constraint of trade. I wasn't allowed to teach for 2 years. Perfect opportunity to open up an art gallery.
And do you see a difference in the way of your teaching prior to the gallery life and afterwards?
Yes, of course. No, there's a huge difference. So, you know, prior to opening up an art photography gallery and then going back into teaching, it was all the student base was all profession. So it was, let's create a beautiful portfolio of work for you that you can use to be able to sell your skills to a client. So that was, you know, sort of step number one. And then it was step number two, let's create an art photography portfolio that you can use to sort of woo your customers into the person that you are artistically. But the whole focus was on career-driven photography. Whereas now that is completely different. Now it's all, for me, it's art enthusiasts, it's photography enthusiasts. It's more for enjoyment, for your own personal pleasure, creating art and being able to create a portfolio of significant value. So it's a different student base, it's a different way of teaching, it's far more relaxed compared to what it used to be.
And why did you choose teaching as a vessel?
Well, as I said to you earlier, I didn't realize I could teach, and then it sort of was a natural progression. But I can honestly tell you that, and I don't think there's any teacher in the world that can deny this, but I get as much from my students in form of, in form of motivation as what I hope they get from me. So I've learned a lot from the people I actually teach, and especially in what I teach, because you've been in my classes. The worst errors can sometimes become the most beautiful piece of work, and I have an ability to recognize that. And a lot of my students are fearless when you give them a technique. You would know as well, step 1, step 2, step 3, they'll start with step 3, miss step 2 and present step 1. And they might not actually see what they have actually, not what they've created, but certainly what they could make of that.
Yeah, I do understand.
And that becomes inspirational to me. That becomes inspirational to me.
So is that also the way where you draw your inspiration for your own artwork?
Yes, I do draw inspiration from teaching, and there is always along the way, I didn't think of this, wow, that's interesting. But no, I think my inspiration comes more from day-to-day life things. So, just being able, I try to make sure that I can look for art in every opportunity. So whether I'm spending a family Sunday afternoon with a family, or working in the garden or whatever it is, but always being open to possibly an art piece that can be created.
So does that mean you always have your camera with you?
No, not necessarily. You must remember I'm involved in fine art photography, and the camera doesn't necessarily it's not always the starting point. Sometimes it's only the ending point. So yes, I do try to make sure I have a camera readily available wherever possible, but that's not always possible. So sometimes, the camera only comes in later. So whether it comes in the beginning of the process, the middle of the process, or the end of the process, doesn't really matter to me. But every now and then the camera comes in to do some magic.
So where, with all the things you do, where do you find the time to literally still do your own artwork? Because that's something I struggle with at the moment.
Yes, of course, and a lot of people do. I wish I had the time. I wish I could lock myself away in the studio for days on end, or be able to go out again on long trips to do photography. And every now and then I do. Certainly in the winter when things are quiet, I'm able to get away out of town and go and shoot specifically for my portfolio. But otherwise, I just try to interweave it. So wherever I find a couple of hours available, and I can go and I can actually work on pieces. So,
do you also set maybe sometimes a time aside where you just say, okay, I'm just shooting material that I use maybe much later?
Yes, that happens all the time. So even Samantha, my daughter, who's part of me in the business, she tries to make scheduled art time. Where I'm not allowed to do anything but move into the studio, put on some music, and just relax and start to experiment. So that does happen. From time to time, that does happen, where you actually get that time to be able to do that. But there's a lot of other things happening as well. So the noise of the world can be sometimes very busy and take you away from that artistic space.
So, okay, here's a little curveball for you.
Okay.
What was the most influential change in your career?
Are we talking specifically teaching now, or are we talking about
your work,
the art photography?
The art photography.
For myself, okay. I think for me, I always felt that I was on my own in this journey. So this was a journey that I was on. I had tremendous support from my family, but it was all about me. And then on a day, I was busy teaching. I was teaching photography at that stage in the classroom which I have at the studio. And Samantha, my eldest daughter, came walking into the classroom just after she had finished school. We had given her a gap year, told her that she must do nothing and just think about what she wants. And she came walking in on that day. I think it was a Saturday morning, if I'm not mistaken. And she said, "I'm really bored. Can I just sit down and listen to what you are teaching?"
How old was she then?
Oh, about 19, just come out of school, 18, 19, just out of school. So she sat down and, well, up until today she hasn't left. And from that moment onwards, she did all the classes, some of the classes twice, 3 times, 4 times, and progressed until eventually she started exhibiting, and now today she works side by side with me. So I think that's the most significant change in my art photography career, because that has brought a whole substance and side to the business and side to what I'm doing, and I'm not on my own. So in fact I have to report to her often.
But I think you said something very profound here. It's as an artist you often feel alone, but you don't have to, and I think that's why you also created this portal and are teaching.
Yes, well, from the teaching side as well, yes. And just to take your question a little further, on the other side, on the teaching side, I think one of the most profound moments was COVID. Because you must remember, at that stage of COVID, I faced closing down galleries, which we did, because we couldn't get people. And also, I was teaching face-to-face, if you remember, in the classroom. And again, my lovely daughter came along one day with a cup of coffee and said, "We need to teach online." And I said, "What? You want to teach how?" She said, "Online." And we can teach online. I'm sure we can. And I said, "I don't think it's possible." Anyway, we, sort of locked ourselves into a studio and switched on the lights and set up the video cameras, and we started to record our first modules to just experiment. And that has grown into one of the most incredible turnovers in my life. So my customer base changed from pretty much local to international, and I found that teaching online was actually more effective than teaching in a classroom. People turn up to the class on time. They're absolutely engaged and listen. Everything can be recorded, and you're able to watch those recorded over and over. So I think those were the 2 most significant moments.
And does Samantha teach as well?
Initially, I can see she has a teaching skill, but she's always shied away from teaching in front of people. And I suppose that's just because she's very young in her career, and she feels she's still got a lot to learn, although I think she knows more than most. But recently she's been teaching one-on-one. Right. So both Photoshop as well as doing one-on-one instructions in different disciplines.
I know she's very good.
Doing extremely
She helped me a lot.
So I have to watch my back.
And when did Samantha start exhibiting her work?
Well, it was about 4 years after she sat down in my first class. And I was a little bit afraid to allow her to exhibit, because I really didn't want her to have a bad experience. The ultimate judge of art is public, and you cannot sway their opinion. And the worst thing I wanted to happen is that maybe she had sort of a bad or a less than successful exhibition on her first day out.
And sales at the end of the day.
Well, she ended up outselling me that day and outselling one of my other colleagues, other artists we represent. So I think it was pretty much, that moment was then defined.
So what is your best piece of work?
Best piece of work? Martin, my best piece of work, without a shadow of a doubt, is the one I will bring to you tomorrow. Yeah, that is my best piece of work. I think we as artists, photographers, photographic artists, call us what you want, but we live in that world, and I think that's what keeps us motivated. And you know, I think for many people, and we experience this, you would have experienced it as well on the classes, you always undermine your own work because there's no mystery in what you are creating. So you would come onto a class with 5 or 6 or 10 people, you get to see their work and you go, oh my goodness, these guys are way ahead of me, look at what they're creating. And they're doing the same to you. And I think that is for all of us, it keeps us humble. It keeps us humble and it keeps us in that space to create for tomorrow. So it's my work, wait till you see what I create tomorrow. It'll be the best that you have ever seen. And that's my opinion and I'm sticking to it.
It's a good one. It's very good. It's a good way to see, you know, to look forward, to always push yourself a little bit more forward.
Yeah.
So why do you find photography such an influential medium in art?
Yeah, I think that's a loaded question because it can go both ways. So photography on its own has got a space in art, without a doubt. That absolute moment that is captured, that precise recording of reality, of life. So let's push that aside. If you're looking, and certainly for me, we're using the photographic process as part of creating art, then I think the precision that it brings is a starting point, but it's also its Achilles heel. So for me, it's the inconsistencies in photography that appeal to me more than the consistencies. So in pure photography, as an example, color is important, focus is important, sharpness is important, image resolution is important, the whole thing. For me, it's the inconsistency of the camera to be able to do that. So I rather embrace photography's errors as part of creating art than its precision. And there I find, you know, it can help you to get over a whole lot of hurdles. And like I said to you earlier, it doesn't matter whether the camera comes in the beginning, the middle, or the end of the process. But every time the camera comes in, and that moment, that piece you're recording, it does change the characteristics of what you are creating. And that's why the camera is so important to me. That's why. If it's used for what it's maybe not meant to be used for. And that's where it becomes interesting.
And are you going to retire soon?
You know, in our world, I suppose the word retirement doesn't really exist. So, you know, somebody said to me many years ago that if you find what you want to do, you know, you basically, you don't have a job, you have something that you can do for the rest of your life. So I can't see myself doing anything else. So creating artwork, working in photography, teaching, it's all what I love to do. So I don't have like a sort of a shut-off time for that. And I think I'll make myself, I'd become a very grumpy old man if you took it away from me. And I don't want to become
that's
grumpy.
what I'm doing now in my 50s, studying with you so that I can do all of this when I retire.
Well, there we go. And if I can help you to get to that point,
yeah, we will be both enough.
Yes.
So, Martin, what do you think makes you a good teacher? I know.
Oh, all right. Then I should hand the question back to you. But I don't know. You know, I think everybody on this planet gets given gifts and talents. And one of the secrets to life is finding what gifts and talents you have. And it's always interesting that when somebody has a gift or a talent, they don't recognize it themselves. They don't recognize it themselves. I mean, you know, it usually takes other people to recognize it. So I've been told from a number of people that they enjoy the teaching and they enjoy the way I teach. So I just believe them. So if they say
If
so.
I may add, it's your interest in people that makes you a very good teacher. You're very interested in your students and where.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. You can pay me later.
Yeah.
So many would say, bah, I can learn that on YouTube. What would be your answer to that?
Yeah, I think the internet is a very powerful learning tool. I really do. I think you know, if I compare it to when I started learning photography and even art photography, when the internet only really started to become a source of information, I would have embraced it. So I think it's a really, really good tool. And the danger for me is that very often with YouTube and with these videos is you taking quite a lot of different sources of information. And sometimes you find that could guide or take you down a road maybe where you don't want to be going. Or no. So I think you'll never replace the mentorship in face-to-face or one-on-one teaching or one-on-one evaluation. You'll never replace that. You know, we still rely on one another. We do. In every aspect, including in the world of teaching and learning, students and teachers. So you would never replace it, but don't ever underestimate what you can actually get off YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So what comes next? What can we look forward to?
Sure, well,
projects.
2023, interesting year, I think, for us all. Certainly for myself and for Sam, who's worked side by side with me. On the teaching front, we are now going into an art photography academy, which we're opening. So this will be a portal where people can come and learn lessons, art photography lessons, either snippets of information if they want, or they will be able to subscribe and be able to, and sort of, on a subscription base, have access to a whole lot of material, and also to be able to have their work evaluated and to be part of an art community at large.
And that is on a month-to-month basis?
Well, there will be different options. So we are at the moment busy building that and busy getting it ready to go. So I think we'll be starting, I hope, in March. The actual platform will be up and running, and then it will grow from there. So we have quite a lot of work to do with that, and that's all exciting. I'm busy working very closely with a partner who is based in Germany, who understands all of this and is helping us to build the platform correctly and the business correctly.
With German precision.
With German precision. So that's the one thing that is happening. And then we have in March, both Sam and I have our single biggest upcoming exhibition. I don't want to say too much because it's something that I would rather give information closer to the time, but it's going to, for both of us, it's going to be what we feel is probably our boldest move in the world of art. So that is happening in March. You will be invited, so please stay in town so that you can come and have a look. And we are trusting that this exhibition will go global as well.
Thank you, Martin.
No, you're welcome. You're more than welcome, and thank you for taking the time.
Pleasure.
Okay.